those of you who don't know, my name is Donald Sheldon. I'm the chairman of the Libertarian Party for Broward County. We've got a number of things going on tonight, but of course, basically, we have one speaker, and he will have the whole floor for the whole evening. I do, however, want to introduce his campaign manager, and she will be talking to you all just momentarily about the state convention. Go ahead, please.
Hi everyone, I'm Miguel Alexandre. I'm Adrian's campaign manager, but what I do want to tell you guys about is that the LPF, the Libertarian Party Florida State Convention, is going to be on May 24th through 26th. I have all of the registration forms, information about it. There's going to be tons of breakout sessions, and of course our business meeting will be there. We have elections this year. I have, cards if you just want to save the date and know about it, or if you want to register. Or we also have advertising packages, so anything that you need to know about the state convention, come see me. And anything you need to know about the campaign, come see me, and we will get that done tonight.
Thank you. I've asked Amy to read off the biography, basically, of Adrian for you, and go ahead.
Hi everyone, if any of you don't know, I'm Secretary of the Libertarian Party of Broward County, Amy Baum. Before I introduce Adrian, I'm going to read the biography. Adrian Wyllie is a husband, father, small business owner, military veteran, radio personality, community leader, and a third-generation Floridian. He is an honest, principled man who understands what his oath to defend the Constitution means. He and Dawn, his wife of 22 years, have two sons, aged 14 and 19. He's an active community leader and has served on several committees and boards in Florida, and as a volunteer youth sports coach for over a decade. Wyllie serves as chairman of the Libertarian Party of Florida and is a member of the Florida Steering Committee for Fix the Deaf. He is co-founder of the 1787 Radio Network and president of an IT consulting firm. He is known as ardent defender of economic freedom, privacy rights, limited government, and individual liberty. As governor, he will continue to defend our Floridians' life, liberty, and property for excessive taxation, overbearing regulation, invasions of privacy, and all unconstitutional interference from the state and federal government. He will invigorate Florida's struggling economy by cutting taxes and red tape getting government out of the way of small businesses. He will launch innovative free market ideas, ensuring that Floridians have a solid fiscal plan to weather any national debt crisis. So, ladies and gentlemen, our chairman of Florida, Adrian Wyllie.
That reminds me, I gotta cut that biography way down. Just say, hey, here's Adrian Wyllie. I want to start off tonight with the issue that many of you guys might not be expecting me to bring up, but I want to talk about the issue of bullying. And I want to talk about it in a personal context. When I was in second grade, I was bullied. Okay. And I took it for a long time, and one day, at the encouragement of my grandmother-in-law, I decided to stand up to bullying. Well, I got beat to a bloody pulp. But I learned something that day, because after that day, the bullying ended. And it's kind of a weird thing to start with, but what I believe is today, all of us are being bullied. And we're not being bullied by the kid at the school bus stop. We're being bullied by our federal government. And we need to do what you should do when you're bullied. Stand up. Stand up and fight against that bullying. And that's really going to be one of the mainstays of my campaign. We need to stand up to the bully. The bully is the government. The bully is coming at you from every angle. They're going after your economic freedom. They're going after your individual liberty. They're attacking you from every angle. Your lifestyle, whether it's coming from the right or the left. Government is out to restrict your freedom. And, a lot of people will say, well, Adrian, you're running for governor. Why are you talking about federal issues? Well, there's a really good reason that I'm talking about federal issues. And it's the United States Constitution. And in our founders' wisdom, they gave us a couple of amendments in the Bill of Rights, specifically the 9th and 10th Amendment. And what those two amendments do is they ensure that anything that's not specifically enumerated as a power of the federal government is retained by the state or by the people. That is what we have lacked in government for a very, very, very long time. We have a state legislature here in Florida that believes in the ultimate supremacy of Washington, D.C. If it comes down from upon high of the federal government, we have to roll over and comply. We have a governor that talked a good game during the campaign on issues like, Second Amendment rights. He's still out there talking about, hey, I'm an NRA member. But yet, he's made overtures that, well, maybe we need to go back and look at the stand your ground law. Maybe we need to go back and look at some of our gun laws now that, the federal government is starting to be really restrictive. I mean, he actually said this, we want tourists to feel safe in Florida. Okay? Well,
Not the residents.
I want the people of Florida's rights defended. And that's what I stand for. The way we do this on a state level is through the concept of nullification. We are going to nullify anything coming down from the federal government that is not specifically enumerated as a power in Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution. Now, you're saying, well, Adrian, you're one guy. Yeah, you maybe get elected to governor, but what are you going to do with this legislature? Well, I'll tell you exactly what I'm going to do with the legislature. I am going to veto absolutely everything that comes out of there that doesn't meet those criteria. And they're going to get awfully sick and tired when they write their 2,000 bills, which is roughly how many they write every legislative session, that every single one of them gets vetoed and it has to go back for an override. And pretty soon they're going to realize that they're going to have to play ball here or nothing is going to happen whatsoever. And when I say play ball, I mean restore your economic freedom and individual liberty. And that's how we're going to do it. Now I have criteria for every bill that will hit my desk. There's 4 criteria. First and foremost, is it constitutional? The answer to that question is no, veto. Okay. Second question, can we afford it? The answer is no, veto. Next question, is it necessary and proper? If it's not, it gets vetoed. And the final question, if it passes those other 3 criteria, does it solve the root cause of the problem? Or are we just putting another Band-Aid on the issue? Are we just doing something to make ourselves feel good and, oh, look, we care? So if it doesn't meet those 4 criteria, it's going to get vetoed. And I can pretty much guarantee you that every single one of the bills that I've seen, and as part of my job as the Libertarian Party of Florida chairman, I read a lot of legislation. It's painful, but I do it. And I can tell you the vast majority of legislation fails more than one of those criteria. So that's going to be a wake-up call to the Florida legislature, that they are going to have to deal with this. And see, we don't currently have anyone, a governor or anyone running for office that has the courage to stand up and do that. They don't have the courage to stand up to the bully, whether that bully be the federal government, whether that bully be the state legislature. I love it. I don't know how many of you guys have listened to my radio show, but my whole attitude is bring it. I'm the guy that when I got the American Community Survey, how many of you guys are familiar with that? That's put out by the United States Census Bureau, and it comes out in non-census years. It's a packet this thick it's 28 pages of personal questions. How long is your commute to work? What is your religion? How many TVs do you have in your house? I mean, it's just insane how much information they collect. Well, I got it, and I called up the Department of Commerce and said, I'm not going to fill out your survey. What happens now? And it says all over the envelope, your response is required by law. I said, okay, great. It's required by law. I'm not going to do it. What's the next step? Well, we're going to fine you $5,000. I said, okay, well, here's the deal. You fine me $5,000. I'm not going to pay the fine. You're going to have to put me in jail for not filling out a random survey that was sent to resident at my address. Let's see how that works out. So they literally sent people to my house, kept coming to my house to get me to fill out the survey. So I finally got tired of it. On the air, live on the air, I called the United States Department of Commerce and said, I'm not going to fill out your survey. In fact, forgive me, but I actually said, screw you. And they said, I need to get a supervisor. The supervisor wouldn't even come on the line. They wouldn't even come on the air and talk to me. And since that day, I haven't heard another peep out of it. It's been a couple of months now. That's what I'm talking about. They don't know what to do when the people stand up. When they're usurping this authority and they have no legal right to do what they're doing. If we stand up, we win. So all we have to do is take a stand. Now, Governor Scott just came out with a new budget. Many of you seen the new budget? He's increased the budget $4 billion. I want to do the Austin Power thing. $4 billion. Rick Scott's proposal for the state budget is $74 billion. Now, huge number. And to be completely honest, I really can't. I can understand. I can write it down. I can do calculations with $74 billion, but I can't even really conceptualize how much money that is. It's such a huge number that you can't even really grasp it. So I was looking for a way to kind of put it in perspective, and the way I found was I looked to Russia, and I wanted to see what and Russia. Keep in mind, this is the nation with the world's largest nuclear arsenal. I wanted to see what their defense budget was. Their defense budget is $70 billion. So you need to tell me that the state of Florida is spending more on their budget than the entire defense budget of Russia? It's absolute insanity. Now, I know for a fact that there's a ton of waste, a ton of inefficiency, a ton of unnecessary spending in there, and a ton of things that are just spending money on taking away your liberties. We got to get rid of all of that. The other thing we need to get rid of is all the federal funding. We need to start having the spine to reject federal funding. A lot of people will say, we can't run our state without the federal funding. Let me tell you something about that federal funding. It's a carrot and a stick. And the carrot is the federal funding, but as soon as you take it, those strings attached have a big old stick waiting to hit the people of Florida over the head with. That sort of funding is used to take away your liberties. I'll just give you a couple of examples. Pinellas County, Florida, my home county, they received $4 million in grants combined from the Department of Homeland Security, Department of Defense, and here's one you're going to love. The Biometrics Identity Management Agency. Biometrics Identity Management Agency. I bet a lot of you didn't even know that existed. Until I actually reviewed the budget, I didn't know it existed. I had to look it up. It's a real thing. There is actually a federal government agency that their entire job is to collect your retina scan, your fingerprints, your facial recognition data. And our local sheriff's office is getting $1.8 million a year from them in federal grants. Another line item on the sheriff's budget, and this is not just in Pinellas County, this is happening in Broward County, it's happening in Palm Beach County. I know Bradford's neck deep in these type of grants. But another line item was irregular warfare support. Let that sink in for a minute. Irregular warfare support. Now, I talked to my county sheriff about what that was. I want to know the details, and I'm on a friendly basis with my sheriff. Talk to him all the time. Well, kind of friendly basis. But he couldn't give me an answer. He said, I'll get back to you on that. I'll get you the details of the program. Still waiting. It's been a couple of months now. Folks, this is the type of thing that is in our state budget coming down from the federal government that all it does is take away your liberty. And as governor, we're just going to stop accepting it. Because once we stop accepting the money, we stop accepting the conditions which take away your liberty. We can tell because the federal government's going to come in and say, hey, you took the money, now you got to implement this program. And we can say, no, I'm sorry, we're not taking the money anymore and take your program back to D.C. And that's what we're going to do. Now, we were talking a little bit about the state budget. I want to talk about education, because that is a huge, huge chunk of the state budget. Do you realize that on average, K through 12, we spend $12,000 per student per year? $12,000 per student per year. Yeah, that's a rough average. Some counties are a little higher, some are a little lower, but it's roughly $12,000 per student. And that's combined state and county.
Broward is much.
Broward is much higher? Yeah. And some, Gilchrist County and Union County and Dixie County probably offset that because they're probably lower. But do you mean to tell me that we cannot educate a child on $12,000 per year? Now think about that for a minute. Let's put it in the scope of a classroom. That means your average classroom should be receiving $250,000 per year. One classroom, $250,000 a year. Are you telling me we can't afford crayons? We can't afford band on $250,000 per year for a classroom? So what does that tell you? That tells you that money, somewhere between the state government and the classroom, is disappearing. And I know where it's disappearing. And that's what we're going to attack. It's disappearing in all this middle management. It's disappearing in all this bureaucracy that exists solely for bureaucracy's sake. There are people in the education system whose entire job consists of creating justifications for the existence of their job. That's what we need to end. Okay? We also need to set up an environment where we can ensure that the school system is closer to the people. Let's get the state out of it. I'm not a proponent of FCATs. I'm not a proponent of the federal government or the Department of Education. We're going to get them the hell out of the state of Florida. And we're not going to be mandating to the local school boards and the local schools what they have to do. Let's leave that up to the local communities and the local people. What we also need to do is find ways to let the free market thrive in education. The way that we do this is to give people incentives. Now, I'm not a big fan of vouchers, but I have a brilliant team of economists that are working on this project right now. I want to find a way to tie children being moved out of the public school system and either to homeschooling or to a private school system with property tax credits. Let's find a way to give people incentives to say, all right, well, you know what? If I take my kid out of public school, I'm less of a burden on the system, therefore I should pay less taxes. And I'm going to move them into private school, or I'm going to homeschool my kids, which I think is a great alternative as well. Let's give them incentive to do it without first taking their money and then giving it back to them and saying, okay, here's your carrot, but here's your stick. Okay? Let's just let them keep more of their money for being less of a burden on government. I think that's the proper role to do it. Now, on taxes, I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. I believe in a complete repeal of property taxes. If your property can be taxed, and then if you fail to pay that tax, your property can be seized by the government, you don't own it. You're a tenant, and the government is the landlord. You're in a feudal system. It's a fiefdom. It's not your property. So the end goal is a repeal of property tax. It's not something we can do overnight, but that's somewhere we need to get to. One of the first things I can do, though, is to stimulate the business environment in Florida and to give people a reason to open new businesses and come to Florida because of the competitive advantage and the ability to thrive and grow their business and hire new people, is we can have a complete repeal of the tangible tax. Now this affects all businesses across the board because the tangible tax applies to any business that has tangible items. They have to pay a tax on it. We get rid of that, all of a sudden that's a huge burden off business, and that's something that they can use to grow their business, to hire more people. I want to get into a little bit more of the business plan. Now, I'm a small business owner. I'll tell another personal story. I wanted to open a real retail location. And as part of it, I got the lease, had a nice location, ready to set up, had an architect draw up plans, and the the area I was renting, that was pretty much what I wanted, except I didn't want this one decorative interior wall fabricated. So I hired a contractor to fabricate the wall, said we're going to need to get some permits. Well, 3 months later, I still didn't have the permits. I'd done everything I needed to do. Still didn't have the permits. I was scheduled to have opened 6 weeks ago. They delayed the opening of my retail location by 2 months, costing me, tens of thousands of dollars in revenue. Now, finally, I went down to the tax assessor's office, the county seat, and said, okay, what do I need to do to get this done? Oh, well, the paperwork's in this office. Where is that office? I literally took that paperwork from person to person and said, you need to sign here, you need to sign here, and let's get it done. We need to get out of that. We need to get out of that mindset of everything we do, everything that business does, has to be given permission. It's a privilege for you to earn a living. It's a privilege for you to engage in commerce. That's not the case. And government doesn't have the authority in so many of these cases to regulate it. And when they do it so poorly and so inefficiently that it's costing everybody money. Because that money that I lost in that one case is just one of thousands, perhaps millions of similar stories that would have resulted in more into the economy, more jobs. That's a couple of people that couldn't start work and couldn't start collecting a paycheck for 2 months because of stupidity in government. Now we're going to get rid of all that. As far as we can, a lot of that's on the city level and the county level, and that's where you folks get involved because you need to be running for office also so that you can get on the city councils and the county commissions and we can start changing this idiocy and put some sanity back into government. Now, the next topic I want to talk about is something that I know is near and dear to Don's heart, and that is legalization. Folks, this is a no-brainer. This is something that is, the utmost in victimless crime. Yet we've used the justification of prohibition. The government has destroyed so many lives, has taken away so many of our freedoms. They use this as an excuse for everything. The reason that we can't be secure in our person's papers and effects is either terror or drugs. And they're both straw men for the most part. We need to completely legalize marijuana immediately. We need to pardon everyone who's been incarcerated exclusively for non-violent drug crimes. And that's I tell you what, probably the first 10 days in office, I'm going to be sitting there signing pardons because there's got to be a stack that high. We also need to do it, and I got to credit Don for reminding me that this needs to be part of a process. We need to expunge the records of everyone who has been convicted solely on the basis of and that's something that Charlie Chris won't do. That's something that Rick Scott won't do. That's something that I will do. And I will make that an issue in the campaign. And I believe that we've finally come to the point in time where people have begun to go back to that concept that we learned so early. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. We learned this kind of thing in kindergarten. Well, he's not hurting anyone, leave him alone. Well, that's how we should all be. And I think the people of Florida and the people of the U.S. are starting to come to that conclusion, and that's why our ideas are starting to win. I've been a libertarian for a long time. When I was about 20, 21 years old, I don't remember exactly, a friend of mine had a piece of paper in her hand, and she goes, you got to check this out. Someone handed this to me at some event, and I immediately thought of you. And it was the world's smallest political quiz. Filled that thing out, and I was like, wow, I'm a libertarian. I never had any idea what I was. Now I realize I'm a libertarian. Soon thereafter, I registered. I actually have the benefit of saying I've never voted for a presidential candidate other than a libertarian. But there's a difference. Back in the early 90s, when I first figured this out, I would go and tell people, hey, I'm a libertarian. And I literally, this is a true, honest-to-God story. So many people have said, a librarian? I really got that. Or it's like they had absolutely no idea what I was talking about. 10 years ago, I'd talk to someone and say, I'm a libertarian. They'd say, you're just a Republican who wants to smoke pot. Yeah. But there's a difference, which is ironic because I don't smoke. I believe in your right to do so. I don't choose to. Today, it's totally different. Today, when I talk to people and tell them I'm a libertarian, they go, you know what? I pretty much agree. I like what you guys are saying. And I believe that in 10 years from now, when we go around talking to people and say, I'm a libertarian, they're going to say, me too. And that's the point we're getting to. And one of the ways that we get there, and make no mistakes about it, I am in this race to win. I am going to fight for this thing tooth and nail. You can see it. I drove 5 hours to get here tonight, and I'm doing this, 3 nights a week, going around the state. I'm all in for this. But one of the other benefits of this, say we fall short and we don't achieve the end goal, is that we're inspiring people. We're spreading the message, and we're inspiring other people to run for office, because that's what we need. And I'm going to keep hitting you guys for this, because I look around this room and I see a whole lot of candidates. And that's what we should be doing. We should all be running for local offices, for county offices, any office at all. Let's get out there and run. Let's take a shot, because if we don't have the candidates out there, we've got no chance of getting the people in place that can actually fix this thing. So that's what the LPF has been focused on. Over the last 2 years of my chairmanship, it's one of the things we've really been pushing. We tried just picking a few key races and going all in for that. And we had some mixed results on that, but I think we're at the time now where we need to get candidates in every single race. We're going to have the first statewide primary in our history. Already myself and another Clinton candidate, John Wayne Smith, has declared, and it looks like Roger Stone's going to enter the race as well. They'll make a decision later this year. I think that's phenomenal. I mean, think about that for a minute. We are going to have a statewide libertarian primary. What's that going to do for our image? I mean, how are they going to ignore that? We're having a statewide primary. It's going to be a phenomenal thing, and that's going to wake a lot more people up. So after we have this wonderful primary, we're going to have a lot more people in the general willing to say, you know what, those guys have gotten together. Those guys are starting to get it. They're starting to make something happen. And I talk to so many people that are just waiting in the wings. They're sitting there saying, I agree with you in philosophy. I know you guys have all heard this. I agree with you philosophically, but I'm not really ready to jump in full bore. There's still a couple of things that I'm not too sure about, whether it's this or that. Yeah. Well, a lot of people say they want to be able to vote in the primaries. We could throw that argument out the window this year, or in 2014, rather. But so the Libertarian Party is growing. We're doing the right things. We're starting to win. We are winning. It's a long road ahead, but we're well beyond the first steps. We're halfway down that road. We just got to keep moving ahead in that direction. Now, another thing I want to touch on is something that pretty much all of us agree with, and that's Federal Reserve monetary policy. I think we all know that the dollars in our pocket are becoming worth less and less every day. And there's a good possibility that at some point in the near future, they will be completely worthless. We've got to do something about it. And again, why is this governor? He's running for governor. It's a state. Why is he talking about Federal Reserve policy? I get this a lot. You're talking about federal issues. That's where you're wrong. There's a lot of things that we can do. A lot of things that we can do to weather the financial storm that may be on the horizon. May not. I think it will. I don't think that you can print for fiat currency, buy debt with it, that has to be paid off with more fiat currency in this ever-ending cycle of debt and quantitative easing. I don't think a fractional reserve banking system is sustainable. It never has been for history. But we need to realize there's things that we can do on the state level. Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution gives states the authority to make their own money. So one caveat, has to be gold or silver. Well, guess what? I don't think any of us is going to be walking around with a coin purse, jingling around with silver coins, even though I carry one in my wallet at all time. I just feel good about having a silver coin in my wallet. I know just in case I've got $30, I have value there. So, but what we can do is we can potentially create our own currency. Now, well, to create a currency based on gold or silver, you need a lot of gold and silver. Where are we going to get the money to buy it? Well, how many of you folks know that the state of Florida owns a little over 30% of all the land mass of Florida? Let me say that again. The state of Florida, through various land trusts, owns 30% of all the land in Florida. What's the market value on that?
By square miles or by value?
Acres, no, acreage. Acreage, yeah. They own 30% of all the acreage in Florida. It's got to be a huge amount of value. Hey, there's a libertarian idea. Let's sell it. So take that money, invest in gold and silver, okay? Start the basis for a currency, and then start telling our vendors, hey, you want to contract with the state of Florida? You know, and of course we're all here, well, you still need somebody to build the roads. Okay, we'll start with that idea. The state of Florida will still build the roads for now. But when we contract someone to do it, we're going to pay you this new currency. Okay? Constitutional currency, based on gold and silver. In fact, we may want to print bills, but that bill can have a little fine strip of 99.999 gold in it. Or it can have a little strip of 0.99 silver. Our dollar bills in our pockets already have a metallic strip woven into them. Why couldn't we do the same with gold and silver? So now we start paying our state vendors with the gold and silver that we've acquired via the sell-off of this huge, insanely vast amount of land. We start paying our vendors in that. We've just created an economy. All of a sudden those vendors are going to say, well, we have this currency that has intrinsic value. Because it is gold and silver. It may be a paper note. Maybe it's a plastic poker chip with a little dot in the middle. I don't know. We can come up with whatever we want. But it's constitutional because it's a gold and silver currency. That will all of a sudden create a market demand for this currency. All of a sudden we've created a new economy. And all of a sudden what will happen is over the past decade, we've seen inflation of roughly 70%. You don't ever hear it that way, but think of it this way. 10 years ago, milk was $2.84 a gallon. Okay? Today it's over $4. There's your 70% right there. You can track just about any commodity good, and you can find that roughly 70% inflation in it. Nobody talks about it. It's the frog in the pot of water. The heat is being slowly turned up. We're not feeling it. But here's what would happen if we did have a state currency based on gold and silver. You'd have that gallon of milk on the shelf. And there would be a price there in U.S. dollars and a price there in Florida dollars, whatever we want to call them, sunshine notes. I don't care. Today, it would be $4.29 either way. Okay. Next year, Florida dollars is still $4.29, but maybe it's $4.59. 10 years from now, it's $9 in U.S. dollars, $4.29 in Florida dollars. Guess what people are going to intrinsically start using? We've set the table for the people of Florida to weather that financial storm by giving them a competing currency that they can make the choice whether or not to use, whether or not to go to the bank and convert their dollars to it. And it's something that is going to be resistant to any potential inflationary crisis that's going to be brought about by horrific Federal Reserve policy. Now, this room probably loves that idea. Selling that to the general public is going to be a little different. Okay. There are several states that are in the process of establishing competing currencies, state currencies. Utah just passed a competing currency law, which allows them to do the same thing. Texas is in the process, I believe. Yeah. So Montana is in the process as well. There's a lot of states that are doing this. Yes.
Hold on, one question. It hasn't been
mentioned by any sorts of media, but there's one currency that has appreciated 100% against all fiat currencies in the world.
Would that be Bitcoin?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, very familiar with Bitcoin.
With Bitcoin.
You know what? I like my currency kind of tangible.
No, you can actually own a coin, a tangible coin. The interesting thing is it's non-centralized.
Right.
Central banks are freaking out about it, and what's backed by is encryption. And the revenue, there's only, I believe, 10 million or 11 million last time I checked.
It's an interesting concept. I'm very familiar with it. Wish I had got in on the ground floor, quite frankly. I missed that though.
And I think we were talking about silver and gold. In the past 10 years, they've appreciated, gold appreciated 505%, and silver about 670% against fiat currency. Yeah,
well, that's exactly against fiat currency. The purchasing power of gold and silver hasn't really changed. What's happened is they caught up with the inflationary cycle. That's the difference. G. Edward Griffith tells a great story that in ancient Roman times, an ounce of gold would buy you a fine toga, handmade, a leather pair of sandals, and a fine leather belt. One gold coin. Today, for the value of a gold coin, you can walk into any men's store in America and buy a designer suit, a handcrafted Italian pair of leather shoes, and a handcrafted belt. So for 2,000 years, the value of that 1 ounce of gold has not changed in purchasing power. The only thing that's changed is the decreasing value of the fiat currencies that it's traded in. It's a hard sell to sell to people, but it's something that we're going to push forward with. You may not hear me talking about it in this kind of detail out on the campaign trail when I'm talking to the general public, just because they don't understand the underlying concepts yet. But we're going to get them there, folks. We're getting them there baby steps at a time. Like I said earlier, we are winning. They are starting to understand these concepts. And even if they don't fully understand the concept of why, they feel it. They know that the price of milk is, $1.50 higher than it was 10 years ago. They know that a loaf of bread is $5 when it used to be $1.99. They see it every day. So that's what I'm going to do with competing currencies. Another thing that I'm going to do that I really believe is not only going to make Florida the business destination. Businesses are going to want to come here for this plan, and it is the Intrastate Commerce Act. Here's how it works. If you have a good that is fabricated, grown, manufactured, and sold within the state of Florida, it will be completely immune from any federal regulation, federal taxation, and any oversight whatsoever from the federal government. How is this constitutional? Well, one of the things the federal government loves to do is they love to misapply the Commerce Clause of the United States Constitution. The Commerce Clause says that the federal government shall regulate commerce amongst the several states, not within the several states. So we've got a very good legal argument for saying, you know what? You go ahead and pass all those gun regulations, okay? Because I tell you what, Taurus is going to keep manufacturing any guns they want to and sell them in Florida because you're using the justification of the Commerce Clause to say you can regulate firearms. We say it doesn't apply in Florida, and those Florida gun manufacturers can sell whatever that the people demand on the free market. That's how we're going to get around so many of these federal laws. Colorado. Montana is doing it specifically for firearms. I propose expanding it to every business. Absolutely every business. Think about this. How would it apply in states like Colorado and Washington that legalize marijuana? Well, now the federal government is coming in and saying, oh, no, there's still federal regulations. Well, we can go back to the federal government and say, well, I'm sorry, but under the Intrastate Commerce Clause or Act in Florida, you don't have the authority to regulate marijuana that's grown within the state of Florida, sold within the state of Florida, and consumed within the state of Florida. You have no federal authority to oversee it, regulate it, and you sure as hell don't have the authority to come in here and arrest people for using or consuming or selling. So this will apply to so many areas. Now think about that for a minute. If a business said, well, let me see, where can I go that doesn't have a state income tax? Where can I go that has an incredibly solid business-friendly environment? Where can I go where I don't have to pay tangible tax? Where can I go where property taxes are on the way out? And where can I go where I have an automatic 20 million person market, the citizens of the state of Florida, that I can sell my product without any hassle from the federal government and have a state government that's got my back if the federal government tries to interfere? Well, guess what? You would see businesses flocking to Florida. You would see the unemployment rate in Florida. I would say within 2 years of implementing that plan, 2-3% maybe. Anyone that wants to work could work in that environment, believe me. So that's one of the things that I propose, and that's going to be a cornerstone of my candidacy. Now, we talked a little bit about gun rights. I want to tell stories. The Second Amendment is sacrosanct. The Second Amendment is what guarantees all of the others. The Second Amendment is not about hunting. Our founding fathers were not being tyrannized by deer. The Second Amendment is to ensure the people of Florida, or the people of the United States of America, can defend themselves against the tyranny of an oppressive government. It's exactly what they did during the Revolutionary War. They were the victims of tyranny from across the pond. Good old King George tried to have his way. And quite frankly,
That's why we need fully automatic weapons.
my belief is that the citizens should be as well armed as law enforcement. That should be the guideline. A lot of times people come out with this, well, you say you're a libertarian, do you believe people should have their own nuclear weapons? Well, no. Guess what? I'm not in favor of every house having a nuclear weapon. I'm sorry if that makes me un-libertarian, but guess what? However,
Look at who we trust with them.
However, the bottom line is that we should have the same ability to protect ourselves that the police force has to protect themselves. If it's good enough for the police, it should be good enough for the regular citizens. Yes?
What's DHS call them? Like personal...
Right. Yeah, when police carry them, they're called light arms. When the DHS has them, they're called personal protection instruments or some stupid euphemism. But when we have them, they're assault weapons.
May I suggest something to put in your
I'm sorry, say again?
May I suggest something to put in your speech in
Sure.
your campaign about that? Who authorized the police to have guns?
We do.
Okay, so once a year, once every 4 years, the citizens of every locality need to authorize or reauthorize the police to carry guns.
I like that.
The only problem I have with that is if they say, no, we don't want the police to carry guns either, just like in England.
Right. Yeah, that's
Well,
the
yeah,
point.
we get copies.
You look over in England and they've all got their personal protection.
I love you, and I just continue. But I'm enforcing what you say.
Yeah.
First of all, education is one of the federal attributes at all. Only belong to the states or the people.
You're correct.
It's no reason to exist the Ministry of the Secretary of Education.
Right.
At all. Zero.
I concur.
Okay? It's just a way to distribute money and to bribe the states.
Bingo.
That's
You're
it.
preaching to the choir, brother. You're preaching to the choir. Let me continue with this. The other area I want to go to is one of the first things I'm going to do as I'm signing that big stack of pardons. I'm going to sign one more piece of paper, and that is going to be to recall the National Guard, the Florida National Guard, from all overseas combat operations. You know what? I can't stop the federal government from waging unconstitutional, offensive wars, undeclared wars all over the world. I can't stop that. But what I can prevent them from doing is spilling Floridian blood to do it. Now, the National Guard is currently, the way it's structured, and it's sad, it's going back to the Dick Act, and that's not a derogatory statement. The actual act is called the Dick Act. basically federalize the National Guard. But I'm going to go ahead and recall, and then we're going to have a little bit of a court battle because the federal government is going to say, Governor, I'm sorry, you no longer have the justification, you no longer have the authority to oversee the National Guard. Well, guess what? They're coming home. They're going to be on Florida soil, and then we can talk about it. So, and they're going to be on Florida soil if and when we ever need to protect them to protect us from hurricanes or perhaps the federal government coming down here and trying to take away our Second Amendment right. They'll be met with a National Guardsman on every doorstep if necessary. So, recall the National Guard and make sure they're here to protect your inalienable rights, because that is the reason that they exist. They do not exist as a reserve force to go fight international wars.
That's right.
So basically that's my platform. I just want to kind of close before I start taking questions with a new campaign slogan. Kind of tested out on with you guys. We've been searching for this, and the campaign slogan is "Take a Stand." It's what I've been doing all my life. I've been driving. In fact, I drove over here. I don't even have a driver's license. Okay, there's a reason for that. I'm not some crazy guy, but I realized that in January 1st, 2010, they changed the way Florida driver's licenses are issued, and it's because of the Real ID Act. And if you've renewed your driver's license in person since January 1st, 2010, you now have a Real ID compliant driver's license. You can tell that you have a Real ID compliant driver's license because there's a little gold star in the upper right-hand corner. Now, if you've done this, you know that you have to take in some extra paperwork. You have to take in an original birth certificate, your Social Security card. If you're a woman and you're married, you have to take in a marriage license. If you've been divorced, you have to take in a divorce decree. In some cases, you even had to bring in your bank statements. That information was all scanned into a federal database. Also, when they put you in front of that blue screen and took your picture, they didn't take your picture. They took a digital facial image capture, a high-resolution digital facial image capture that mapped up all the unique characteristics of your face and was scanned into a national database, a facial recognition database. It's called FRNet, administered by the Department of Homeland Security. This is all codified in Public Law 99-13. A lot of people don't know what's going on, but I would say a lot of people are probably already in that database. Well, when I found out about it, I refused to renew my driver's license. I went down to the DMV, told them I will not submit to the violation of my Fourth Amendment rights by you taking all this documentation voluntarily. If this sheriff of my county wanted this information as part of a criminal investigation, he would need to issue a warrant. Why do you have the authority to force me to surrender this information to you for the simple privilege of driving? And why do you need to scan my facial recognition characteristics into a database that can identify me everywhere there's a camera? Now, you guys have probably seen the cameras popping up on every intersection. That little camera at the traffic light that faces you. Well, let me tell you something about that. That's part of the Intelligent Traffic System, ITS. And that system is interconnected throughout the state. It's a huge DOT project with funding from the federal government. And that system is now in the process of being integrated with the facial recognition database. Those cameras are high resolution enough to take an image of your face in 1/20th of a second and within 2 seconds have a full identification and dossier of all the information that was scanned in during the time you renewed your driver's license. I refuse to submit to that. For 2 years, I've been driving without a license. I have been challenging the government to pull me over and arrest me. I have challenged my sheriff, the former sheriff. I finally got him to pull me over. I had to go on the radio and say, "You don't have the stones to pull me over. I'm driving, and I'm on the air broadcasting this. I'm driving around in your county, and you don't even have the stones to pull me over." Well, this was 2 months after I very publicly surrendered my driver's license. 4 hours later, I did get a ticket. When I went to court for this, they opened up this is a traffic ticket for an expired driver's license, okay? Non-moving violation, no big deal. Normally the thing, you go in and you're lined up with 35 other people. They opened up a special courtroom for me. They brought in TV cameras. They brought in 3 state prosecutors for me. The judge, on a traffic ticket, deliberated for a week before coming back with a decision that I did not prove beyond a reasonable doubt that Real ID was unconstitutional.
It was on you.
It was on me. Since then, I have complete immunity on the highway. I am the least likely person in the state of Florida to get pulled over. I have been gunned, radar gunned, inadvertently speeding. In one case, I was doing 63 at a 45. I didn't realize it was 45 until I saw the cop with the gun on me and looked over and saw the speed sign. Okay? He pulled out behind me. I'm at the light. He runs my tag. I watched him in the rearview mirror running my tag. I thought for sure, finally I'm going to get pulled over. I get another chance to go up before a jury. This time I'm going before a jury. And I'll convince the jury that it's unconstitutional. As soon as the light turns green, he goes around. I can't get pulled over in this. The reason is I'm taking a stand. Take a stand. That's what I'm asking everyone in this room to do. If you are confronted with government usurping authority, if you are confronted with a government that is trying to take away your inalienable rights, take a stand. Engage in civil disobedience. Don't do it. Don't submit to unlawful authority. The other thing you can do is help me. Go out there and get petitions signed for me. Donate to my campaign. My opponent, Rick Scott, has already said he's going to spend $100 million. Our campaign goal is $2 million. If we can hit $2 million, we can win. Because we spend it a lot smarter. As I'm out traveling here, I'm staying at Motel 6, man. Tom O'Dead is leaving the light on for me. We're not spending money stupid. We're spending money smart. Also, we already have over 200 volunteers. My goal is to get to 6,000. If we get to 6,000 volunteers, one in each precinct in the state of Florida, and if that person is willing to knock on 100 doors or make 100 phone calls, we win. It's a mathematical certainty. We can get to that 34% number with that. So I'm asking you, help my campaign. Volunteer for the campaign. Get me some petition signed. Donate today. We can take Visa. We can take MasterCard. We got it all set up online. Write me a check. I need the money. We'll spend it smarter. But the bottom line is, take a stand. Thank you very much. I'll take your questions.